Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chita, so today we're holding the portion of Truma, which is in the book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse number 1. God spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the Jewish people, and they shall take to me, me'es kol ish, from every man, every person, which it gives the goodness of his heart, they should take my offering. Now she says that when it says li, it's meaning lishmi, which we always say means lishma, for the sake of God's name. Truma, what's the meaning of the word truma? Hafrasha. Truma means hafrasha, which means to separate from their belongings to donate to me, separation of something. Yidvenu libe. Now she says yidvenu is a concept of a donation, a dava, which means goodwill. Now she says that our rabbis say over here, if you look in the pasuk, it says it's 3 times truma, mentions this truma 3 times. One is the contribution of beka per head, from which the basis of the base of the Mishkan was made. Beka lagalgoyolus, everybody gave a beka of silver, as explained later in Pashas Pekudei. Another is the contribution for the altar, also a beka per head, which was collection of box to purchase the communal offerings. It was a communal offering every day, so it needed to be bought from the money of all Jews, and then the way it was done is everybody gave a backup. Everybody gave a machzah shekel, a half a shekel, and with that they bought the korbanos of every. So in essence, every person had a chelik in the carbon equally. And then the third one was the another one was the contribution of the tabernacle, which was each personal donation, and everybody gave what they wanted. The 13 items mentioned in the passage were all required either for the construction of the temple or for the priestly garments. And you guys will see when you examine them, you'll see you have all these aspects. What the Torah asked for was all ultimately in everything that was created. And this is what you should take from them. Zav, gold, v'chesed, silver, and copper. Rashi says these all came in free will donations, each person giving according to his generosity, except the kesef, the silver, which was the main part, was brought by everyone equally. That was the half a shekel per person. Because we don't find in the entire construction of the tabernacle more silver than was required, so it's only needed for the Beis Hamikdash. The building of the Mishkan, the only thing that was silver were the sockets. Everything else was gold. As it says, the silver, those community who were counted beka per head, and the remaining silver that was brought as a free will donation was used for the service of the utensil. I mean, there were certain utensils that were made in the Beis Hamikdash, the utensils that held the psamim, etc. So and the holding, getting of the blood, I believe, was silver, but that was not the Mishkan. That was the utensils. The Mishkan, the only thing that was the Mishkan was silver, was the sockets of the Mishkan. The rest of it was gold. And you should get wool dyed Turkish wool. Vagaman and dyed purple. Tlash shani and wool dyed scarlet. Vishesh v'izim and linen and goat's hair. Sheish is linen. Rashi says a wool dyed with the blood of the chilazon, the color which was greenish blue. So this was the chilazon, also connected to the concept of the tzitzis. The Torah says you need to have a string that was tchelis. So this is they're not sure exactly what it was, a snail, a fish, the argument. And this animal gave off a blood that was greenish blue. So most authorities today hold that we don't know exactly what it is, and therefore we don't have this tchelis. But there are Jews in Israel, around the world, that also today do the tchelis. Argaman, now she says a wool dyed with a type of dye named argaman, Sheish is linen. Izim, she says this is goats here, therefore the Onkelos translates ume izi. That comes from a goat, and not the goat itself, but it's called izim, it's from goats. And dyed ram skins. And the skins of a tachash, shitim, and acacia wood. Now she says madamim, they were dyed red after tanning. Tchashim, now she says this was a certain type of an animal, and it only existed in that time. It went extinct. It was a multicolored animal. And therefore, Onkelos translates Susgona, meaning Shashas. It took pride, it was like a peacock that takes pride in his colors. This animal took pride in the beautiful colors that it had. Va'atse shitim, and acacia wood. Now she says, and from where did they get wood in the desert? And therefore, Tanchuma explains, our father Jacob foresaw that through divine inspiration, that the Israelites were destined to build a tabernacle in the desert. And so he brought cedars from Canaan to Egypt, and he planted them, and he instructed his kids that would take them along after leaving Egypt. So that means that these cedars grew in Mitzrayim, according to the Medrash. And when the Jews went out of Egypt, they schlepped these big trees. Because you have to realize that every atze shitim, every plank was 10 feet, was 15 feet tall. So these were full trees that they schlepped, and we're not talking about 1 or 10. So I believe over 100 trees they schlepped from Mitzrayim, according to the Medrash. And you have to make olive oil for the luminary. And spices for the anointing oil. And for the incense offering that were bought in the Mishkan. Shemel Amur, that says clear olive oil to be used for the kindling of the light in the Beis Hamikdash. The Shemel spices for anointing oil, which is made to anoint in the furnishings of the tabernacle and the tabernacle itself, in order to sanctify it. So we need spices for that purpose. And the spices were necessary, as brought down in Kisisa. What's Kteris Hasamim? She says, which we burned every evening and morning. There was a Kteris that was burnt in the Mishkan every day, in the morning and in the evening. As it stated in Parashat Va'ata Tetzaveh, the term Kteris, this is a word you should remember, Kteris, this is something that's brought many times in Parashat Vayikra, book of Leviticus. Kteris means to rise, raising mist, a pillar of smoke, a pillar of smoke. That was the point. The point was that they had to make the Kteris in a certain way that it would give off a pillar of smoke. Onyx stones and incense stones for the ephod and for the breastplate. These were two. They were the top. They were on the top of the person's shoulders that we use in the ephod. Stated all in Va'ata Tetzaveh. Miluyim. Now she says fillings, because a setting is made for these stones in gold, like recesses. The stones placed them called filling. The filling of a diamond ring. There's a filling. Every stone had a filling. And that's what they call miluyim. These recesses, they're called avnei miluyim, filling stones. And the place of the setting is called mushbetes, a frame. Le'ephod la'choshen. The onyx stones were for the ephod. They were the shoulder straps that on these shoulder straps the ephod would hang, and on top of these shoulder straps on his shoulders there were these two onyx stones that said the names of the Jewish people, the tribes. The breastplate of the ephod explained all in Va'ata Tetzaveh. We'll come to that in a couple of weeks. Next week. All these are kinds of ornaments that the Kohen Gadol wore. Verse number 8. Asuli mikdash. You should make for me a sanctuary. V'shachanti b'soichem, and I will dwell in their midst. Now she says again, the word of li. There's a lamed over here. They should make for me, for my sake, li l'shmi. They must specify intent to infuse holiness in these materials by using them for the sanctuary. You have to do this l'shma, for the sake of this mitzvah. Verse number 9. Everything I'm showing you, the form of this tabernacle, as tav is called Caleb, in the form of all its furnishing, and this is what you should do. Now she says, according to all that I am showing you here, form of the tabernacle, this verse is connected to the previous verse. They must make me a sanctuary according to all I'm showing them. So I am the architect, so to say. I'm going to give you exactly, I'm going to show you the plans, exactly what I want. The chen tasu, what means tasu is an interesting word. They show shall they do. You must make it in the future generation. Meaning, if one of the utensils is lost, or when you make your meat furnishings for the permanent Beis Hamikdash, such as the tables, candelabras, levers, and the stands of the Solomon made, you must make them according to the same form as these. You cannot make a new menorah. The menorah that I tell you, that's in this week's parsha. This week's parsha talks about the klei hamikdash, the vessel, the menorah, the aron, the shulchan. So these need to be as is. The walls of the Mishkan itself understood were different. Shalom HaMelech built brick walls. Didn't use any more the kroshim, but the utensils that were in this Beis Hamikdash were the same. Because the Torah, if not, it shouldn't say ta'asu, so must you make. It should say ta'asu, so you make. Verse number 10, you should make an ark out of acacia wood. A masayim v'chetzi ark needs to be 2.5 cubits its length. V'ama v'chetzi rachba, and a cubit and a half its width. V'ama v'chetzi kamatza, and a cubit and a half its height. Now she says, you should make me an ark. It's very hard to understand exactly what was on over here. And therefore, now she says, like those closets, arenas, constructed without legs, like a box, chest, in the same fashion of a trunk, that's called trunk, which sits on its base. You must overlay it with gold. This is hard to understand until we learn Rashi what this means. From inside and outside. Titapena, it needs to be overlaid. You must make a gold rim around it. So therefore Rashi says, Betzalel made 3 boxes. 2 of gold and 1 of wood. Each of the 4 walls in the base of the opening on top, he inserted the wooden one in the larger golden one, and then a smaller golden box in the wooden one. And he covered the top of the edge with gold. So the middle box, the 3rd box, had a lip on it, and that lip covered the wood that was underneath it. Thus, the overlay from inside and outside. So not those 3 boxes, one or the other. The 3rd box made sure to cover the wood that was around it. And upon this box, he made a zer zav. This is like a crown going all around the ark, above the top edge. For he made the outer golden ark higher than the inner wooden one, so that the height would be matched the thickness of the cover that was covered the ark, with the cherubim that was on top of the cover. So the cover lay into the thickness of the world, so it was flat. The rim rose a little above the entire thickness of the cover, and that's why you saw the crown. So you saw the crown of the Torah, and that's symbolic to the crown of the Torah that we put upon the Torah in our shul. Is the crown. The crown is that crown that was around the ark, because the ark is symbolic of the Torah. I have some pictures. We'll show it, not today, show it tomorrow. You should cast 4 gold rings. When a satala bar pameisav, you should put these 4 gold rings on the 4 corners. Shtei tabal tzala echas, 2 rings on one side. Shtei tabal tzala shen, and 2 rings on the other side. The Yatzak that Rashi says is the concept of, denotes casting. Pameisav, this means Uncle translates veizer, its corners. The rings were placed on the upper corners of the ark near the cover. 2 on one side, the right side 2, and 2 on the other side, along the width of the ark. And the poles, as we'll soon now Torah will say, to make poles, were inserted in them. It was different, these poles, than any other poles, because you weren't allowed to take the poles off of it. The length of the ark separated between the poles was 2.5 cubits, between one pole and the other, so that the 2 men who carried the ark, each end could walk between them. So it was explained in Menachos in page 98. And the 2 rings on the other side, these are the same 4 rings mentioned at the beginning of the verse, and now it specifies for you where they were placed. The word ushte is thus superfluous, and it's been interpreted as the word shtei tabois without the vav. We also explain that the sense of the vav here is as follows: and the 2 rings of these rings will be on the side. Saloi, the word saloi means the side, sidoi. You should make poles of acacia wood. And then vitzipisa isam zav, and cover these poles with gold. Badi, Rashi's badi is poles. And then you should insert the poles through the rings. That you should put these poles in the rings, that these poles should carry the on. Verse 15, in the poles must remain the rings of the ark. You're not allowed to move these poles from this ark, even though you're not traveling with the ark. I mean, wherever the ark is right now, the poles are still in this ark. Then you must place in the ark the table as the tablets of testimony that I will give you. Now she says, this is, you should know Rashi has a mention over here. Which I will give you. The question, the whole argument, when was this command said? Before Matan Torah, if Matan Torah? A little wording over here. It sounds like this was before Matan Torah, which I will give you. That means the Matan Torah was not yet. He was going to give him the tablets. Some people hold it was said after the first tablets to the second tablets. So it's not very clear exactly when. Big argument when the mitzvah of the building of the Mishkan was commanded. Over here, it sounds like it was commanded before the golden calf. Truma comes before Kisisa. Kisisa is the golden calf, so we're not even holding by the golden calf yet. So it's not clear exactly when it was commanded. Edus and the Tataladan can make bi'arin in the ark. Edus is a Torah. This is a Torah. She edus beini u'beinechem. The Torah is a witness that we have between us. That I have commanded you the commandments that are in the Torah. So the Torah is a testimony that we have this relationship between one another. And that completes the Chumash of today. The Alter Rebbe continues. Alter Rebbe holding in chapter, we are holding in the middle of chapter 27 chapter of Tanya. The central point above discussion, the Alter Rebbe, that through occurrence of evil thought is one's mind, and through one's battle against the Sitra Achra is subdued, and causing a great pleasure, Lamaila, causes a great pleasure above. Alter Rebbe now goes on to say that you don't have to have iskafia on only prohibitions. This subjugation of Sitra Achra and the consequent divine pleasure are brought about not only by the struggle against evil, Sitra Achra, something that is not so good, when it attempts to lead one to sin, In our case, where the lack of struggle against evil thoughts and the continued meditation on them could constitute a sin. Rather, one produces the same effect by the struggle with one's nature in abstaining from permitted matters. For as explained in Tanya, in chapter 6, any permitted action done without the specific intention, l'shma, anything, it says, the pasuk says, every action you do in the world should be for the sake of heaven. L'shem, shamayim, l'shem means l'shma, for the sake of God, for the name of God. Wherever you go, you should know him. So it's not talking about sins. It's talking about regular day-to-day work. Food, work, whatever I do should be l'shem shamayim. So that means, and even in the permitted things, a person needs to have intention for the sake of God. For example, eating in order to obtain strength to study Torah derives its vitality for sitra achra. The term simply means the other side, the absence of holiness. Doesn't mean an aveda. Sitra achra doesn't mean actually doing sin. Sitra achra means the opposite of holiness. Unholiness doesn't mean a sin either. To be holy and to be unholy doesn't mean when I'm doing good or bad. Unholy means it's not holiness. Does not infuse holiness. The shachanti b'seichem, like we said today. I want to dwell in everything you do. I want to dwell. God says, I want to be a partner in everything you do. And if you do something that I'm not a partner in it, then I'm not a partner in it. Is it bad? No, it's unholy. It's unholy. Only an action to direct, so direct it can draw its vitality from the realm of holiness. So if I do any other action, in essence, that it has not infused with Kedusha, then where does it get its existence? From the other side. That's where it's getting its existence. It's getting its existence, not from holiness. Therefore, whenever one refrains from doing even a permissible act, he says, you know what? I'm not going to do it for the sake of no reason. And if I'm not going to find a reason to do it for the sake of it, I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to do something for the sake of heaven. And if it's not for the sake of heaven, it's not for me. I'm an avera, it's not a sin. I don't need to do it. I don't need to do it. Expression by Chassidim, they would say, that what you're not allowed, you're not allowed. And what you are allowed, you don't have to have. Not everything you're allowed, you need to have. So I won't have it. I'll refrain from this desire, this pleasure, this thing that I think I need. Therefore, whenever one refrains from doing even a permissible act in which this intention is lacking, because I only can give it a desire, my personal desire. So I cannot find within it a concept of a purpose in this action, then maybe I shouldn't do it. In order to subdue the sitra achra, this alone gives pleasure God. So it's not only the going away from evil that gives pleasure HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It gives pleasure God anytime I break myself, even the good, even the things that I'm allowed. So let's see how the Alter Rebbe says it. Furthermore, not only fighting one's evil thoughts does one subdue the sitra achra, but even the matters that are fully permissible. Every act that one sacrifices one's impulse, even for a moment, and his intention is to subdue the other side of holiness in his left part of his heart, can achieve this concept, what the Alter Rebbe wants him to achieve, what God wants him to achieve, what his soul wants him to achieve. For example, he wants to eat. There's nothing wrong with eating. Every person needs to eat. He wants to eat, but he decides instead of eating, he says, you know what? I'm going to push off my eating. I'll wait to eat, and I won't have to eat right now. I will eat in an hour and a half an hour for oisik potato. And he goes and he learns Torah in that half an hour. So if one occupies himself with physical matters, he does not subdue the tzedakah by postponing his meal. since he's in any case going to indulge in his animal soul. What's the difference? Half an hour or an hour? But the point is, he says, I'm going to do something good. Not that I'm going to show that I can push off my meal. No, I'm showing that I can push off my meal, so I should learn an extra half an hour. But if he studies during that time, then even when the delay of his meal does not gain him any time of Torah, study Torah. What's the difference if I study now or I study in a half an hour after I finish my meal? No, the point is that I'm showing myself that I can continue to learn, or I can use the time for the sake of a good thing. For he would have studied Torah regardless as soon as he finished his meal, despite the fact that he eventually does eat. Yet he subdues the Sitra Achra. He shows himself he can overcome this. He doesn't need to eat right now. And he can take the time and learn Torah, use that time for the sake of learning. But a mere effort of his postponing his meal, and thereby he brings about divine pleasure caused by every subjugation of Sitra Achra. The Gemara says, the fourth hour of the day was when all people ate. All people ate. That was a schedule the humans had. They got up, they ate breakfast, but they mainly ate lunch. Lunch was the main meal of the day. Lunch. They say actually healthy is better lunch a bigger meal than supper. So lunch was, I think in Israel till today, lunch is the big meal. That's the meal of the day. Shashish is machal tamid chamim. But the Gemara says the sixth hour was the time the sages ate. They ate also the same meals, and they ate the same length of the meals. But they said, you know what? That's the normal use. Everybody's going to eat at 4 o'clock, that's 6 hours in the day. I mean, the fourth hour in the day. We're gonna continue learning. We'll continue learning, and we will eat in the 6th hour of the day. And they would go hungry with this intention that they wanted to extend their learning. We don't need to eat. We can eat a little bit later. And what are we going to do with that time? We're going to learn. So we're going to show that we can learn. Learning is more important to us than our eating, so to say. They're going to eat. Even though after the meal, what do you think these sages do? They didn't go play basketball. They went to learn. So what's the difference? They ate 4 o'clock and went at 5th hour to learn, or they went at 6 o'clock and they went at the 7th hour to learn. But that was the point. The point was not that we're not going to eat. The point was that they showed themselves that they can push this thing off, and they can continue to occupy themselves in learning, so that the food was secondary to the learning. And that's what we need to show ourselves. Not that we're not going to have the pleasure, or we're not going to use out the situation. We are. But the learning is more important. The mitzvah is more important. And that takes precedence. That shows something is important. What God asked me is important. Similarly, if one refrains his mouth from saying things which he greatly desires, he wants to say this. He has a passion for whatever he wants to say. He wants to say this thing to somebody. He wants to talk this. Not an Aved, not Lashon Hara. Stam talk, even with nothing wrong with the words. Yet he refrains. He says, you know what? Why should I talk this? Why should I talk about this? I'll talk about something holy. Instead of talking about the sports, I'll say Advar Torah. I'll say words of Torah. Why not? I can use it out for the sake of heaven. Likewise, the thoughts in mind. Why am I thinking this? I'll think about it later. Let me take the time now and think something holy. All these things is again, we're not talking about you're having machshavas zores, you're having evil talks, you are pashut, you're not having any evil thoughts, you are just using it out for a good thing. Feel lamat mizar, even the slightest subjugation. I'm not talking about big things over here. You should realize small push off these things. because you're going to eat anyway. You're maybe going to talk this anyway. Maybe you'll think it anyway. But right now you're pushing it off. And you're going to use out the time that you're pushing it off to learn, to think, and to speak good things. You don't realize what's a ripple effect. The glory of God and His holiness is greatly elevated above. And this holiness of sublime holiness issued forth upon a man below, which assists him with a great and powerful aid in the service of God. And this is what our sages said of blessed memory. If a man consecrates himself a small measure here in this world, he is sanctified greatly from above. Wow. Besides the fact that you're doing a mitzvah, there's a general mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah connected to anything but to everything. And that is, Viskadashta. Become holy. Kedoshim Tiyul. Become holy. Elevate yourself. You're not like a regular person. You're a holy person. Do things for the sake of holiness. You can do everything in life for the sake of holiness. And what does the verse mean? When he sanctifies himself in that what he's allowed to do. Things they are allowed to. Hence, apart from the consolation of previous offered bain, as through turning away from evil by combating evil thought and desire, his efforts, he affords God a pleasure that tzaddikim can't. His battle with the Sitra Achra also contains a positive quality, the carry of doing good, and that is likewise not present in divine service of tzaddikim. This positive quality is fulfillment of a mitzvah, sanctify yourself, which applies only to beinim and not to tzaddikim. For the intentions of the commandment is that even one's personal, permissible, mundane matters should be attended to out of the desire of the animal soul, not a desire of the animal soul, for the sake of God. This directive cannot apply to tzaddikim, who are unencumbered by the desire of the animal soul. So they don't have this issue. The tzaddik does not have this issue. And therefore, this mitzvah of Viskadishtam is a mitzvah that the Beinoni has. And what's the meaning? To sanctify yourself. Make yourself holy. Make yourselves holy. That means to say, even though the person is not so holy. In truth, he's not holy. He's not separate from the other side. He's still part of it. But make yourself holy. Make yourself. Because my Sitra Achra, my Nefesh HaBahamis, my Yetzer Hara is still there. He's still strong as the day he was born. And it's full strength and might in the left part of his heart. He's the seat of the animal soul in the inclination. So the word Kedusha, holiness, means setting apart. Separate from unholy. A tzaddik doesn't need to separate himself from unholy. He doesn't know what unholy is. The Torah says, "V'asali migdash." Who can make something holy? We're the Beinoni. We live in an unholy world. We live with unholiness. It's not something that's outside, it's something that's inside. We have unholiness. And God says, nevertheless, make yourself holy. Make yourself holy. The verse thus means one should sanctify himself, even if he must make himself holy and separate himself from Sitra Achra. For at the present level, his heart still desires those things that he derives from. So therefore, the Torah tells you, I know you're unholy. I know that. Make yourself holy. Do it anyway. Separate yourself from that unholiness for the moment. Make yourself holy. Conquer yourself. Even while at this level, he must subdue and the master his evil impulse and make himself holy. Separate yourself from the Sitra Achra. Separate yourself from unholiness. Sitra Achra means unholiness. A human being, every one of us has the capability to separate ourselves from unholiness. because we know what unholiness is. And again, unholiness is not the sin. Unholiness is not to be a glutton. Unholiness is not to do things for self-desire. Unholiness is not is selfishness. Separate yourself from selfishness. Stop for a moment. Become selfless for a second. That second is worth everything. Becoming selfless for a second is the mitzvah. You get the iskadishtem. Become holy. You want to get angry? Don't get angry. You want to be depressed? Don't be depressed for this moment. That's becoming holy. V'yisem kedoshim. You will be holy. Here the Torah says another statement. The word be holy, which is a simple sense, voice command. You can understand, it's convey a promise. The Eibush says, you know what? You act like you're holy, and I will make you holy. You do one step to me, I will do 2 steps to you. You act a moment of holiness, and I'll give you 10 moments of holiness. Is Kaddish. Ultimately, every Jew will be holy. Ultimately, we're going to all be holy. Because when we do a small step in this world to become holy, separate ourselves from unholiness, separate ourselves from mundaneness, separate ourselves from worldliness, and become a holy entity, the Eibush says, wow, am I going to give you holiness? Messiah is saying the Eibush will help you. To ultimately chase out unholiness from your heart. Ma'at, step by step, the Eibush to God will chase away unholiness from my existence, step by step, Bezat Hashem. So that even his heart, he will no longer have any desires for anything originating in the realm of Sitra Achra and the realm of unholiness. What a beautiful teaching of the Alter Rebbe. Today is the 25th day of the month, which in Tillim is half of chapter 119, the first half of chapter 119. So here is the Yom Yom, studying a parsha of Chumash and Rashi every day, Sunday until Sheni, which we did today, Monday until Shlishi, etc. Saying Tillim every day, and the entire Tillim on Shabbos Mevorchim, which we did yesterday. Be scrupulous about all of this. It is crucial for you, for your children, and children's children. Thank God we did it. We followed that directive. God bless you all. I hope to see you all at 10 o'clock. We'll continue to learn Tanya together at the JEI or on Zoom. And in Mitzvah, we'll see you all tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We'll continue to learn the Chitas of